And welcome back into the next part of this little tutorial series. Today we're going to be jumping into the code and actually authenticating users by allowing them to sign up, sign in, and also log out. This will be a 2 to 3 video section, I want to say. We'll focus on each item here slowly. We'll write down some code and we'll test and see how everything goes. So let's jump right back into it. In the previous couple videos, we created some views. We connected Firebase to our iOS application. We allowed views to go back and forth with each other. We added some text fields and so on. And now we're almost ready to get started with allowing signing up or creating users, and then also signing in along with logging out each user. Before we get started, let's go back into the main.storyboard. We want to create that new file for our welcome in user where we'll hold all the data for our user. So before we do that, let's quickly go back into our auth folder. Actually, no, just go up above and we can create a new group. This will be we'll just create this as a user since this is just a very standard application working with just signing in a user for now and then signing them out, and then also holding certain data and placing that data into our database in Firebase. All right, so let's create a file inside that new folder, the user folder, and this is going to be a Cocoa Touch file. We're going to call this our home view controller, and this is just going to hold our user data for when they open up the actual view. Eventually we might add in a tab bar and actually allow the user to do something and interact with other users. So let's create that, and boom, set that up. And now we're going to go back into our main.storyboard. We're going to close out the panels here on the bottom and the right. I'm just going to close that out. We do need the right one, my apologies. And we're just going to home view controller, perfect. All right, so we have our home view controller connected. And what we will do is we will connect these two elements here into our actual file, where if we go, we add in another view, social, user, and home view controller, perfect. So what we'll need is an action for our logout button. Again, that's just a control hold and then click and hold and drag in there. And this will just be our logout button tapped. And then we should also connect the welcome in label. We'll call this our welcome in label. Perfect. All right, we're good to go there. We're all set with everything. In iOS 13, there's this new presentation style. If we click on our navigation controller and then we go over to presentation, I'm just going to do over full screen. This allows us to go from the bottom up and cover the entire screen, since when the user is logged in, we don't want them to swipe down and then log themselves out again. So we'll just save that, go back here, quickly run this, make sure everything works, and then we will get into the code where we will actually add in our sign up. So let's let that load in here. And perfect, we are in. Don't mind this little line right here on the navigation. I'll show a quick little tip later in this series on how we can get that fixed. So if we just click sign in and then we click something, boom. And now if the user tries to swipe down or click anything, nothing works, but this is where we want to be. All right, let's get right into this with allowing users to sign up with our application. So what we'll do is we'll grab over our project, go here into authentication, and then we're going to set up a sign in method. So make sure you go back into your Firebase project, connect with your email account, whatever account you're using, and then go in there, click develop on the left side, click authentication, and we're going to set up a sign in method. There are multiple sign in methods you could use. You could use Gmail, Facebook, Twitter. I think there's Twitch even. There's anonymous, there's email, but you'll see all of them here. So we'll click set up sign in. And here are all the different options. For this specific tutorial, we are going to use email and password. So each user will only be able to create a certain account with one email. So we'll just enable that. We don't want a passwordless sign-in, so keep that off, but enable the top. And then we're going to save. We have integrated and connected our user base. Now what we're going to do we can drag this out of here. And we are going to actually start setting up the user authentication and allow them to actually sign up. So what we'll do first, we'll go back into our sign up file. We'll import Firebase. So we want to import Firebase and it'll actually allow us to use it. We'll set up our delegates later so that users can't overdraw or try to get past our sign-in method. All right, so first what we're going to do is we're going to add a variable or a let that's going to hold our auth. So this will just call the authentication from Firebase, allowing us to access all of the methods. It's sort of like an object we're using. So I'll just create that auth. It's going to be auth, and then we're going to call auth again, and this is going to be the object that we're holding in our app. Perfect. Now what we want to do is we want to create a way for the user to actually sign up when they click that sign in button. So what we'll do is we'll simply type in auth again, our object, and then we're just going to create a user. So creating user, we're using our email and password, and we have our fields here, our two fields right here. You might be wondering, where's our name field? What are we going to do to that? That's the nice part about this. Since we're using our database as well, we'll be able to store that name inside the user's account in the database, but on the actual authentication. That we'll get back to, but let's just create our user. Our email is going to be our email field .text, and then our password field .text. Perfect. And then we're gonna create a callback, so you can just double click that. And here we want our auth result. And then we also want to hold the error in case there's an error. So what would we do now? Make sure to as well unwrap these so we can actually grab the value and not make it an optional. That would not be good. All right, so first, before we move on, we need to make sure there was no error. So say there was a network error or something happened along with the password not being, I believe it's 6 characters long. Password have to be 6 characters or longer. Or there could be something along the lines of that. An email already exists, or just something happened along that. So we'll just check. So if error does not equal nil, we are going to return out of here. So our user will not be created, and we want to present this little error. So why don't we set up, I want to say, a file where we can quickly present view alert controllers and let the user know if something happened or not. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to call new file. It's going to be a Swift. And this is just going to be a file where we're going to create different items. So I'll call this our service. And we're going to create different functions in here and do different things. So if we just call class, it's going to be our service class. And perfect. All right, so now we just want to set up a quick alert controller so that we can just quickly present it. I'm just going to create a static func. So this is going to be static so we can use it outside the class. And we'll call this our create alert controller. And we'll take in 2 items. We'll take in a title, and we'll also take in a message. And then up here, what we'll throw out to the user is a UI alert controller. Perfect. So we don't have to create multiple UI alert controllers throughout the application. This is just a simple little thing that we can create and call whenever we want. So let's just get started. So we're going to create our alert. If you're not so familiar with alerts, I will add a link in the description below on more information on what they are. And we are just going to call here an alert. And what I did is I took our title and our message and I threw it in here. This alert is only gonna have one action, so we can let our OK action equal UI alert action. And then from there, our title will be OK. This should be our default action. And then what we'll do is we'll just dismiss that alert when the user presses OK. We can do different things. We can throw in different actions into this where we can actually set up, but we're not going to get that deep into it. And then we're just going to add our action. And then return our alert. Perfect. All right, so this is just a little static function we set up inside one of our service classes that we created. This is different from our extensions. Our extensions will allow us to modify certain classes already in the application. Service, we're just going to create some functions that we can use multiple times throughout the application. We could create a sign in and a sign up function. I'll show you how to do that later on, maybe as a add-on video towards the end. But right now we're just going to be calling those functions inside our button. All right, so we're back here, and now what we want to do is we actually just want to present. And you're wondering, what are we going to present? Well, if you just start typing in service dot create alert, and we'll title it error, since this is just an error, and then our message will be that error.localize description. Perfect. We'll allow it to be animated and completion none. All right, perfect. Now you might be wondering, won't this just continue working down its pattern once this ends? Yes, it will. So we need to move this into our create user right after our if error does not equal nil little if statement. Now, this will allow us to create the actual user. This will not store the user's name. We can run this, build and run. It will create the user. After it's successful, it'll move us into the next view, which is our user signed up view, which will present welcome in user. Now, let's try that. We will not get a name. That's because we have not stored any variable or item into our database. So if we go here, boom, if you type in a name like Johnny Appleseed, and then you can do a random email address, user.email, user@gmail.com, and then you can do a password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there we go. So we will touch this up and design it a bit more so that that password is actually hidden when you type it and so on. If we click that sign up button, boom, success. We didn't add any progress bars or anything to let the user know that it was loading in, but we've actually now created a user. This is incredible. This is exciting. Now let's check out our actual authentication page and see if we have any brand new users. So if we just refresh the page, brilliant. There is our brand new user that we have just created.